She paid $500 for a stranger to be her boyfriend, not knowing he was a billionaire CEO. This story begins with a mistake, a stranger confused with an escort from an app. And it ends by proving that sometimes the biggest disasters lead us exactly where we needed to be. 7:12 in the evening. 12 minutes late. Phone completely dead. High heels that seemed to have been designed by someone who never needed to run in their life. Brooke Sterling crossed the entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel in Manhattan as if her dignity depended on it. Because it did, and she intended to come out victorious. The wedding invitations still echoed in her memory. Tyler Mitchell and Jessica Carver, her ex-boyfriend and her ex-best friend, united in holy matrimony after betraying her in the most cinematic way possible. And the worst part? Jessica had the audacity to send a handwritten note along with the invitation. It would be very mature of you to attend. We want to close this chapter with peace. Peace. As if Brooke were the villain of the story, apologizing for being cheated on. No, she would not go as the pitiful ex. She would not go alone. She would not go defeated. That is why she hired a professional escort through an app. They exchanged messages for an entire week. They agreed on every detail with absolute precision. He would wear a navy blue suit. She would be in red. Main entrance, 7 in the evening. Except now it was 7:13. Her phone had died in the taxi because she forgot to charge it the night before, and the driver had dropped her off on the wrong side of the block. Brooke stopped at the hotel entrance, breathless, trying to look like a sophisticated woman and not someone who had just run 3 blocks in high heels. Her eyes scanned the lobby, looking for the hired escort. And then she saw him. Standing near the entrance to the ballroom, there was a tall man with broad shoulders, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit that looked like it had been tailored specifically for his body. Dark hair, defined jawline, the posture of someone who knew exactly what he was worth. He was checking his watch with a bored expression. Brooke felt her heart race. The app had exceeded all her expectations. That man looked like he had stepped off the cover of a business magazine. Without wasting any more time, she crossed the lobby in determined strides, grabbed his arm, and blurted out, "Thank God you arrived." "My phone died. I could not confirm. The taxi dropped me off on the wrong side. I ran in heels. I almost twisted my ankle. But I am here, you are here, we are both here, and that is what matters." The man stared at her with an expression that mixed confusion and fascination, but Brooke did not give him time to process anything. "You remember everything we talked about, right? The groom is my ex-boyfriend. The bride was my best friend. They cheated on me. Together. While I was going through one of the worst moments of my life. But that is not the point right now. What matters is that we have been together for 8 months. We met at a bookstore in Boston when you spilled coffee on my blouse, and you are the most passionate and caring man I have ever met." The man opened his mouth to speak. But Brooke continued, "Oh, and here is what we agreed on." She shoved a white envelope into his suit pocket before he could react. $500 as we agreed. Plus a tip if you do an exceptional job. And by exceptional I mean, make my ex regret every decision he ever made in his life. Finally, she stopped to breathe. The man observed her for a long moment. His eyes were blue, and he seemed to be analyzing every detail of her face. There was something in his expression, a mix of amusement and curiosity, as if he had just found a particularly interesting puzzle. "Are you done?" he asked, his voice deep and controlled. "I am done." "Any questions about the plan?" He looked at the envelope in his suit pocket. Then he looked at her. Then he looked at the entrance to the ballroom, where guests were already circulating with glasses in hand. "Let me see if I understood," he said slowly. "Your ex is the groom. Your ex-friend is the bride. We met at a bookstore in Boston. We have been together for 8 months, and I spilled coffee on your blouse." "Exactly." Brooke smiled with relief. "You are a great listener. That is going to make things much easier. And if someone asks what my profession is," Brooke blinked. They had not agreed on that detail through messages. Or had they? She could not remember. Her brain was working with the capacity of a 1990s computer. "Improvise," she said. "Something impressive, but not over the top, like lawyer or architect. Something that makes Tyler look mediocre in comparison." The man was silent for a moment, that analytical gaze fixed on her. Then, to Brooke's surprise, he tucked the envelope into the inner pocket of his suit and offered her his arm. 8 months. Understood. Brooke felt a wave of relief so strong she almost cried. She linked her arm with his and started walking toward the ballroom. By the way, she said as they walked, what is your name again? The messages were saved on my phone, and now I do not have access. Alexander. He replied. Alexander. Nice, it suits you, much better than Tyler, which is the name of a golfer who cheats on the scorecard. Alexander let out something that seemed to be a suppressed laugh. Do you always talk this much? Only when I am nervous, or hungry, or breathing. She shrugged. My therapist says it is a defense mechanism. I say it is personality. They crossed through the ballroom doors. The place was absurdly beautiful. White flowers everywhere, crystal chandeliers, tables decorated with an elegance that probably cost more than Brooke's apartment. Jessica always had good taste, and now she had the Mitchell family money to finance that good taste. Brooke? A female voice cut through the air. Brooke felt her stomach sink. She turned slowly and came face to face with Megan Holloway, an acquaintance from college who had the subtlety of a megaphone. Megan. Brooke forced a smile. It has been so long. I cannot believe you came. Megan looked from Brooke to Alexander with wide eyes. And with a date. Who is this wonderful man? Brooke felt Alexander stiffen slightly beside her. She squeezed his arm tightly, a silent signal of, get into character now. This is Alexander, said Brooke with a radiant smile. My boyfriend. We have been together for 8 months. Megan practically devoured Alexander with her eyes. 8 months? And what do you do, Alexander? Brooke held her breath. She had told him to improvise, but now she was panicking. What if he said something ridiculous? What if he exaggerated? What if he simply froze? Alexander smiled, a calm and confident smile that completely transformed his expression. I work with technology, he said simply. Oh, like a programmer? Like owner of the company. Megan choked on her own saliva. Brooke felt a wave of satisfaction so intense she almost laughed out loud. That man was a genius at improvisation. Owner of the company. Vague enough to be mysterious, specific enough to impress. The app really had sent the best of the best. Wow, Megan managed to say. That is very impressive. He is very impressive. Brooke agreed, looking at Alexander with completely fabricated adoration. In everything he does. Alexander returned her gaze with an intensity that made something strange happen in Brooke's stomach. He was very good at this. Frighteningly good. If you will excuse us, he said, his hand sliding to Brooke's waist, I need to introduce my girlfriend to some acquaintances. He guided her away from Megan before she could ask more questions. Thank you, Brooke whispered. She is like a gossip vacuum cleaner. By tomorrow, all of Manhattan will know that I showed up with a technology entrepreneur. Is that what you want? That is exactly what I want. They stopped near the bar. Brooke ordered a glass of wine and took a long sip, trying to calm her nerves. You are very good at this, she admitted. The app did not mention that you had acting skills. Alexander just smiled, an enigmatic smile that Brooke could not decipher. Maybe I have many hidden talents. Mystery. I like that. It adds layers to the character. At that moment, the chords of soft music filled the ballroom, and a voice announced the entrance of the bride and groom. Tyler Mitchell appeared arm in arm with Jessica Carver, both smiling as if they were the cover of a wedding catalog. Brooke felt her stomach turn. Alexander noticed. Without saying anything, he moved a little closer to her, his hand finding her waist again, this time with a comforting firmness. 8 months, he whispered. Bookstore in Boston. Coffee on your blouse. I am madly in love with you. Brooke looked at him, surprised by the unexpected kindness. Why are you doing this so well? She asked quietly. It almost seems real. Alexander did not answer. He just kept his eyes fixed on her, with an expression she could not read. Before she could think more about it, Tyler spotted her in the crowd. And the expression on his face when he saw Brooke in Alexander's arms was, without a doubt, the best gift she could have received that night. Tyler stopped walking for a fraction of a second. Jessica followed his gaze and found Brooke. The bride's smile faltered almost imperceptibly. Brooke raised her glass in a silent toast, a serene smile on her lips. I think it worked, she murmured to Alexander. I think the night is just beginning, he replied. Brooke did not know exactly what he meant by that. But at that moment, with his hand firm on her waist and Tyler's disconcerted look crossing the ballroom, she did not care. For the first time in a long time, Brooke Sterling felt powerful, and she had no idea that the man beside her was not who she thought he was. Tyler was still looking. Jessica was pretending she was not looking. And Brooke? Brooke was about to discover that she had found the perfect improvisation partner. The wedding reception was in full swing when an elegant, gray-haired lady approached the couple with a curious smile. "Alexander, dear?" The woman kissed his cheek with familiarity. "It has been a long time since I have seen you at events like this. And who is this charming young woman?" Brooke felt her stomach tighten. That woman knew Alexander? A friend? A relative? If she asked the wrong questions, the charade would end right there. "Mrs. Montgomery," said Alexander naturally, "this is Brooke, my girlfriend." "Girlfriend?" The lady's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "How wonderful. How did you two meet?" Brooke opened her mouth to tell the bookstore story, but Alexander was faster. "In Boston," he said, "at a bookstore. I bumped into her and spilled coffee on her blouse." "My favorite blouse," Brooke added, joining the game. "White. It was completely ruined. I offered to pay for the dry cleaning, and I said that no dry cleaner would save that mess, so I offered to buy her a new blouse. And I said he had terrible taste in clothes." Mrs. Montgomery laughed, delighted. "And yet you gave him a chance?" Brooke looked at Alexander. There was something in his eyes, a genuine amusement, as if he was truly enjoying this exchange. "He insisted on buying me a coffee to make up for the one he had spilled," said Brooke. "And it was the best coffee I have ever had in my life." "It was the most expensive coffee I have ever paid for," said Alexander. She ordered a latte with almond milk, extra foam, cinnamon on top, and an additional shot of espresso. "You remember my order?" Brooke looked at him surprised. That had been made up on the spot. "I remember everything about that day," he replied, holding her gaze. For a moment, Brooke almost believed it was true. Mrs. Montgomery sighed, clearly moved. "You two make a beautiful couple. Alexander, your mother will be very happy when she finds out." When she walked away, Brooke let out the breath she had been holding. "That was intense." "You did well," said Alexander. "We did well?" "You improvised the coffee order perfectly. You seem like the type of person who orders complicated drinks. Is that a compliment or a criticism?" "It is an observation." Brooke smiled, genuinely this time. "You are good at this. The app did not mention that you had acting skills." Alexander just took a sip of his drink without answering. The next hour was surprisingly easy. Every time someone approached, they fell into sync almost naturally. Brooke would start a story, and Alexander would complete it, as if they had really lived those moments together. For a couple who were friends of Tyler, she mentioned that their first date had been at an Italian restaurant. "She ordered spaghetti," said Alexander, "and spent the whole night worried about the sauce." "Because nobody can eat spaghetti elegantly," Brooke defended herself. She gave up halfway through and ordered risotto. "Risotto is safer, less chance of disaster." The couple laughed, completely convinced. When they were alone again, Brooke looked at him impressed. "How did you know I would order risotto? You seem practical. The type of person who changes strategy when she realizes something is not working." She tilted her head, studying him. "You have known me for less than 2 hours, and you are already analyzing me?" "It is part of the service." There was something in the way he said that, a lightness that did not match his serious posture. Brooke realized that, beneath that reserved facade, Alexander had a sense of humor. He just did not show it to everyone. For one of Jessica's aunts who asked questions about the future of the relationship, they navigated carefully. "Have you two thought about living together?" asked the aunt with that invasive tone that only distant relatives can have. "We are enjoying the moment," said Brooke. "No rush. Everything in its own time," Alexander agreed. "Brooke is still getting used to my quirks." "What quirks?" "He is extremely organized," said Brooke, "the type of person who folds socks by color. And she is the type of person who leaves empty coffee cups in every room of the house," Alexander responded. "I do not do that. 3 cups just in the living room. You are making that up. I am describing." Jessica's aunt watched the exchange with a smile. "You two seem like a real couple. That kind of connection cannot be faked." When she walked away, Brooke and Alexander looked at each other. 3 cups in the living room? She asked. You seem like the type. You are getting to know me through assumptions. Am I wrong? Brooke thought about her apartment, about the 2 cups that were in the living room at that very moment, about the third one that was probably still in the bathroom. No comment, she said. Alexander smiled. A small smile, almost imperceptible, but genuine. Brooke felt something strange in her chest, a feeling of comfort that did not make sense. She had known this man for less than 2 hours and already felt more at ease with him than she had felt with Tyler in 3 years. Brooke, you came. Jessica's voice cut through the moment like a blade. The bride approached with a radiant smile, the white dress flowing with each step. Tyler was right behind her, his gaze fixed on Alexander. Jessica, said Brooke, maintaining her composure. Congratulations. Everything looks beautiful. Thank you. We worked very hard. Jessica looked at Alexander with curiosity. And you must be the famous boyfriend. Megan would not stop talking about you. Alexander, he said simply without extending his hand. Jessica, the bride. She made a dramatic pause. And Brooke's best friend, or ex-best friend, I guess. Things got complicated. Things became what you chose them to become, said Brooke calmly. The air between them grew dense. Tyler cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Good to see you, Brooke. You look well. I'm doing great, Tyler. Thanks for noticing. We are going to do our dance now, said Jessica, recovering her smile. Tyler has been practicing. I hope everyone watches. She walked away, pulling Tyler by the arm, but not before casting one last look at Alexander. A look that clearly said, I know you are faking. She did not like me, Alexander observed. She does not like anyone who is not applauding her. The lights dimmed and the master of ceremonies announced the first dance of the bride and groom. Tyler and Jessica took the center of the dance floor. The music started, soft and romantic, and they began to dance. Jessica was good. Her movements were rehearsed, elegant, full of confidence. She twirled in Tyler's arms as if the whole world were watching. And it was. At one point, Jessica looked directly at Brooke. A look of triumph. Brooke felt her chest tighten. Not because of Tyler. She had already gotten over that. But because of something else. Something deeper. Something that Jessica did not even know she was touching. Alexander noticed the change. He saw the way Brooke swallowed hard, how her eyes filled with something that was not anger. When the music ended and the DJ announced that the dance floor was open, Alexander turned to her. Do you know how to dance? The question caught Brooke off guard. Why? Because I do, and I think you do too. More than you are letting on. She stared at him. How could he know? They had just met. What makes you think that? The way you watched their dance. Not like someone who admires, like someone who analyzes, who knows exactly what is right and what is wrong. Brooke was silent. Alexander extended his hand. Dance with me. I do not know if that is a good idea. Why? She did not have an answer. Or she did, but she did not want to give it. People will look. Let them look. There was something in his tone. It was not a challenge. It was an invitation, a permission. Brooke accepted his hand. What happened in the following minutes surprised everyone, including herself. The moment the music started, something inside Brooke awakened. Something she had locked away a long time ago. Her feet moved by instinct. Her body responded to the melody as if it had never forgotten. Alexander was guiding her, but in reality she was the one in command. Every turn, every step, every movement flowed with a precision that only years of training could create. The guests stopped talking. The glasses were forgotten. The entire ballroom watched that woman in the red dress who danced as if the music had been composed just for her. Tyler stood motionless, his mouth slightly open. Jessica lost her smile. When the music ended, Brooke was in Alexander's arms, both breathless, their faces close. The ballroom erupted in applause. Where did you learn to dance like that? Alexander asked quietly. Brooke's eyes filled with something he could not identify. In another life, she answered. And before he could ask more, she walked away toward the terrace, leaving behind a ballroom full of questions. The cold air on the terrace was not helping. Neither was the view of Manhattan, nor the 3 deep breaths Brooke had taken in the last 30 seconds. She leaned against the railing, trying to understand what had just happened. Why had she danced like that? Why had she let everyone see? And why, of all people, had it been in the arms of a complete stranger that she felt safe enough to do it? Are you okay? Alexander's voice came from behind her. Brooke turned quickly, almost tripping on her own heel. I am great. Perfectly fine. Never been better. Why would I not be fine? Everything is fine. Very fine. Extremely fine. Alexander raised an eyebrow. You said fine 6 times. I count words when I am nervous. I do not count. I am not nervous. I am just breathing. That is what normal people do. They breathe. Do you breathe? Of course you breathe. Stupid question. Sorry, I am talking too much. I always talk too much when I'm nervous, which I am not. Nervous. Did I mention that already? You did. Great. Because I am not. Alexander approached and stopped beside her, both of them looking at the city lights. What happened in there? Nothing. I just danced. People dance at weddings. That is what you do. Music plays, feet move, done. Dance. That was not just dancing. Brooke was silent for a moment. It might be that I have some hidden skills. Professional ballerina skills? Skills from someone who watched a lot of videos on the internet. Alexander did not seem convinced, but he did not push. Do you want to go back to the party? No. The answer came out too fast. I want to leave. I need to leave. If I stay 5 more minutes, I'm going to end up doing something that will embarrass me even more than I have already embarrassed myself. You did not embarrass yourself. I danced like I was on a Broadway stage in front of my ex-boyfriend, my ex-best friend, and approximately 200 people I have never seen in my life. Tomorrow this will be the topic in at least 3 gossip groups. You were incredible. Brooke looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. You are being paid to say that. I am being paid to pretend to be your boyfriend. Sincere compliments were not in the contract. She felt her face heat up. I really need to leave. All right. Alexander took his phone out of his pocket. I have an apartment a few blocks from here. It is included in the package. Included in the package? Emergency accommodations, for when the client needs to escape embarrassing parties. Brooke stared at him, trying to figure out if he was joking. That is very specific for an escort service. We are known for our attention to detail. And what does this apartment have? Bed? Bathroom? The basic necessities? It has a view of Central Park, a full kitchen, and a pool on the rooftop. Brooke blinked. A pool. Heated. You are joking. I never joke about heated pools. All right, she said. But only because I really cannot take this party anymore, and because my feet are begging to get out of these heels. They left through the side door, avoiding the main ballroom. Alexander's car was parked in front, and 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened on the top floor. The apartment was huge. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed all of Manhattan lit up. The decor was impeccable, everything perfectly in place. Brooke did a complete lap, observing every detail. Really? She said, nodding her head. I did not know that $500 paid so well for services. I am going to give 5 stars on the app. Maybe 6, if that option exists. Alexander let out a low laugh. I am glad you are satisfied with the service. Satisfied? I am impressed. You should charge more. Seriously, this is false advertising in reverse. Brooke continued walking through the apartment until she found the glass doors that led to the outdoor area. The pool was there, illuminated, the water rippling gently under the city lights. Her eyes sparkled. Finally, she said, kicking off her heels, a place to relax. And before Alexander could say anything, Brooke walked to the edge of the pool and jumped into the water, red dress and all. She emerged laughing, her hair stuck to her face, her makeup probably ruined. The water is perfect, she shouted. Are you coming in? Alexander watched her from the edge of the pool. That woman was completely crazy. He had known her for less than 4 hours, and she had already grabbed his arm thinking he was someone else, made up absurd stories about how they met, danced like a professional in the middle of a wedding, and now had jumped into a pool fully clothed. She was strange, unpredictable. Absolutely outside any pattern he knew. And for some reason he could not explain, he took off his jacket, his shoes, and jumped into the pool after her. The water really was perfect. You are crazy, he said, emerging beside her. I know. It is part of my charm. They stayed there for a moment, floating, looking at the Manhattan sky that never got completely dark. I should warn you, said Alexander, that some additional services cost extra. Brooke raised an eyebrow. Additional services? Pool at midnight. Deep conversations, that kind of thing. I see, she pretended to think. How much does a deep conversation cost? It depends on the depth. And if I do not want anything additional, then you do not pay anything additional. Perfect, said Brooke, because I do not need any extras. Alexander observed her for a moment. The water reflected the city lights on her face. The red dress floated around her like a splash of paint. She was completely out of place there, in that pool, in that apartment, in that whole situation. And yet, she seemed to belong. He approached slowly. Brooke did not move away. Are you sure you do not want any extras? He asked, his voice low. Absolutely. Then he kissed her. It was a soft kiss, almost experimental, as if he were testing whether it was real. Brooke felt her heart race, her hands finding his shoulders for balance. When they separated, she looked at him with a serious expression. I said, she spoke. No extras. Alexander laughed. A real laugh, without reservations. You are impossible. Thank you. I try. They stayed in the pool for a while longer, talking about nothing important, laughing at silly things. At some point, they got out of the water, and Alexander offered her one of his shirts to wear. The shirt was too big, hitting her mid-thigh, but it was the most comfortable thing Brooke had ever worn in her life. It suits you, he said. Everything suits me. It is a gift. Exhaustion finally won. Brooke fell asleep on the living room couch, wrapped in his shirt, and the last thing she saw was Alexander covering her with a blanket. When she opened her eyes the next morning, the first thing she smelled was fresh coffee. She sat up, confused, trying to remember where she was. The apartment, Manhattan, the wedding, the pool, the kiss, the shirt she was still wearing. Alexander. On the coffee table there was a tray with a complete breakfast. Toast, fruit, perfectly prepared eggs. Next to it, a bouquet of red roses. A gift bag contained new clothes, a white shirt, a pair of jeans, and even a pair of sneakers. Everything in the right size. And on top of the roses, the white envelope she had stuffed into his pocket the night before. Untouched. There was a card beside it. Brooke picked it up. The night was exceptional. Coffee is on me. Alexander Reed. Before she could process anything, the apartment door opened. A man in a suit entered, posture impeccable, expression professional. Good morning, miss, he said politely. Mr. Reed had to leave for an urgent meeting. He apologized for not being able to say goodbye in person. The driver is waiting to take you wherever you would like to go. Brooke blinked. The driver. Yes, miss. He is at your disposal. And Mr. Reed left breakfast, new clothes, roses, and a driver. Correct, miss. Brooke looked around the apartment, then at the man in the suit, then at the breakfast tray. Wow, she said, genuinely impressed. This escort service is really on another level. 5 stars. 10 stars. All the stars. I'm going to recommend it to all my friends. The man in the suit maintained a neutral expression, but something in his eyes seemed slightly confused. Do you need anything else, miss? No. Everything is perfect. Could not be better. Brooke grabbed a piece of toast and took a bite. You can tell Alexander that he is the best escort I have ever hired, and that the kiss in the pool was a very welcome bonus, even without extras. The man blinked. I will relay the message, miss. Brooke changed clothes, ate the entire breakfast, and went down to find the driver. An elegant car was waiting at the building entrance. Where to, miss? Asked the driver. She gave the address of her apartment in Boston, still finding the whole situation absurdly funny. What kind of escort app had a private driver and an apartment with a pool in Manhattan? Whatever it was, she was definitely going to leave a 5-star review. The trip was smooth. Brooke spent the time looking out the window, replaying the events of the previous night, smiling to herself like a fool. When she finally got home, the first thing she did was put her phone to charge. The device had been off since the night before. While she waited, she took a shower, put on her own clothes, and made more coffee. Normal life. Back to reality. When the phone finally turned on, the notifications started appearing. First, 15 furious messages from an unknown number. Where are you? I waited 2 hours at the hotel entrance. You hired a service and did not show up. This is very unprofessional. I am going to leave a negative review. Brooke frowned. Who was this? She had shown up at the hotel. Alexander was there. They had spent the whole night together. So why was someone saying she did not show up? Her heart started racing. She looked again at the card that was still in her purse. Alexander Reed. With slightly trembling hands, Brooke opened the browser on her phone and typed the name. The results appeared instantly, and the face that appeared on the screen was unmistakable. The same defined jawline, the same blue eyes, the same man who had danced with her, swam with her, kissed her in the pool. But the description below the photo did not say professional escort. It said something completely different. Brooke felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. CEO, billionaire, one of the most influential businessmen in the United States. Brooke read the words 3 times, hoping they would change. They did not. No, she said to the phone screen. No, 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 no. She had kissed a billionaire in the pool thinking he was an escort from an app. She had given $500 to a man who probably made that in 2 seconds. She had said she was going to give 5 stars on the app to a CEO. I am going to move to another country, she muttered. Maybe another continent. Antarctica seems like a good place. Penguins do not use the internet. The phone vibrated again. Another notification. And another. And another. Brooke looked at the screen with fear. A video of her and Alexander dancing was everywhere. All social media, all gossip sites. The headline repeated with small variations. Who is the mysterious woman who captured the heart of New York's most coveted CEO? Alexander Reed, Manhattan's most eligible bachelor, was seen dancing with a stranger. The dance that stopped a wedding. Who is she? The video already had millions of views. And then came the worst part. Someone had discovered her name. Revealed, the mysterious woman is Brooke Sterling, event planner from New York. Brooke felt her stomach sink. The phone started ringing. Unknown number. She ignored it. It rang again. She ignored it again. On the 3rd time, she answered by reflex. Miss Sterling? An unknown voice. This is Daily Report News Portal. We would like to know how you met Mr. Reed and how long you two have been together. Brooke hung up without answering. The phone rang again. Another unknown number. Brooke Sterling? I am from Metropolitan Life magazine. Can we schedule an exclusive interview about your relationship with Alexander Reed? She hung up. Another call. Miss Sterling, how long have you two been dating? Is it true that you met in Boston? Brooke turned off the phone completely. She needed a moment to process. She needed silence. The doorbell rang. She opened the door and came face to face with her neighbor, a 70-year-old lady who normally only appeared to complain about noise. Are you famous now? Asked the lady, her eyes shining with curiosity. My granddaughter showed me a video. You dance very well, and that man is very handsome. Is he really your boyfriend? Brooke closed the door in her face. This was not happening. This was definitely not happening. She turned the phone on again, just to check if it was a nightmare. 247 notifications, 32 missed calls, and a message from her coworker, Diane. Brooke, you are dating Alexander Reed? Why did you never tell me? The boss is freaking out, clients are calling, everyone wants to know if you can get a discount on technology products. Brooke groaned and threw herself on the couch. On the other side of the city in Manhattan, Alexander Reed was facing his own chaos. He was in his office, trying to concentrate on a pile of reports, when the door opened without warning. Eleanor Reed entered like a hurricane of elegance and indignation. Hair perfectly arranged, impeccable dress, and an expression that promised trouble. Alexander James Reed, she said, and just the use of his full name was already a very bad sign. Do you want to explain to me what is happening? Good morning to you too, mother. Do not give me good morning. She threw her phone on top of his desk. On the screen, the video of the dance. 8 months? What? The girl in the video. They said you two have been together for 8 months. 8 months, Alexander. And you never mentioned it? Alexander sighed. Mother, it is not quite like that. Not quite like that? I had to find out from my hairdresser that my son is dating the hairdresser, Alexander. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is? Before he could respond, the door opened again. Brian Reed, his younger brother, entered with a smile that did not promise anything good. Hey, big brother, he said, throwing himself into a chair. I saw you finally got a girlfriend. Congratulations. The entire internet is making memes about you two. Want to see my favorites? No. This one is great. Brian showed his phone. It was an image of Alexander and Brooke dancing with the caption, "The Dance of the Year." Why are they making memes about this? Because you two went viral, brother. Welcome to the digital age. Brian put his phone away. But now I am curious. Who is this woman? She seems fun. Brian, said Eleanor in a warning tone. What? It's a valid question. The door opened for the third time. Richard Reed, the patriarch of the family, entered with his usual serious expression. Does someone want to explain to me why I have journalists calling my office asking about my son's girlfriend? Father, said Alexander, I can explain. Great, explain. Who is this girl? Is she appropriate? What is her family? What does she do? She is an event planner, said Brian, still looking at his phone. Apparently very good at what she does. 4.8 stars in online reviews. You looked her up? Alexander stared at him. Everyone looked her up. You are behind. Eleanor sat in the chair in front of Alexander's desk, crossing her legs with calculated elegance. Darling, she said in a tone that pretended to be sweet, I do not care who you date. You know I only want your happiness. But I would like to meet this girl before reading about her on the internet. We would also like to meet her, said Richard. I have already seen enough photos, said Brian. But I will accept a dinner. Alexander looked at his family, his mother with expectation, his father with suspicion, his brother with poorly disguised amusement. He could not tell the truth. He could not say that he had spent the whole night pretending to be an escort from an app because a crazy woman had grabbed his arm at the entrance of a hotel. His reputation, the company's reputation. Everything would go down the drain. But he also could not simply ignore the situation. The video was everywhere. The journalists were not going to give up. His family was not going to give up. He needed a solution. And then, like lightning, the idea struck. You want to meet her? Said Alexander. Yes, the three answered at the same time. Alexander stood up, adjusting his suit. Dinner, tonight, at my parents' house. I will bring her. Eleanor widened her eyes, visibly surprised by the quick decision. Tonight? Tonight. But I need to notify the kitchen, prepare the menu, organize. Mother, Alexander interrupted. You organize charity dinners for 200 people in less than a week. A dinner for 5 is not going to be a problem. Eleanor straightened her posture, clearly accepting the challenge. 8 o'clock. And she had better not be late. She will not be late. Brian smiled, clearly enjoying the whole situation. This is going to be interesting. Richard just nodded, still in analytical silence. Alexander left the office before they could change their minds, crossed the hallway in quick steps, and entered the elevator. When he reached the garage, his driver was already waiting by the car. Where to, Mr. Reed? Alexander got in the back seat. To her house. The driver nodded without asking questions. He was paid to drive, not to question. During the ride, Alexander picked up his phone and typed a message. I need to talk to you. In person. I am on my way. Alexander Reed. He did not know exactly what he was going to say to Brooke when he found her. He did not know if she would accept. He did not know if this was a terrible idea. Actually, he was sure it was a terrible idea. But it was the only one he had. Meanwhile, Brooke Sterling was lying on the couch, covered up to her head with a blanket, pretending the outside world did not exist. The phone vibrated once more. She peeked from under the blanket. A message from an unknown number. I need to talk to you. In person. I am on my way, Alexander Reed. Brooke stared at the message, read it again and again. Then she said, to no one in particular. He is coming here? The doorbell rang. She got up from the couch, still wearing the clothes he had left for her the morning before, her hair a complete mess. She opened the door. Alexander Reed was standing in the hallway of her building, impeccable as always. Hi, he said. Brooke looked at him, then looked at her own clothes, then looked at him again. You could have warned me with more notice. I warned you. 5 minutes is not notice. 5 minutes is an ambush. He almost smiled. Can I come in? Brooke sighed and opened the door wider. Come in. But know that I am still processing the fact that you are a billionaire and not an escort from an app. She pointed at her own clothes, and that you apparently know my exact size. That is either impressive or scary. I have not decided yet. Alexander entered the apartment, looking around. Did you receive my roses? I did. And the coffee, and the clothes, and the driver. She crossed her arms. Very complete service for an escort. Now it makes sense. He turned to face her. I need to ask you something. If it is to return the $500, you can keep it. Consider it a tip for the emotional trauma I caused you. It is not about the money. Then what is it about? Alexander took a deep breath. My family wants to meet you. Brooke blinked. What? The video went viral. Everyone thinks we have been dating for 8 months. My mother is furious because I never mentioned you. My father wants to know if you are appropriate. My brother is collecting memes. And what do you want me to do? Alexander looked her directly in the eyes. I want you to have dinner with my family. Tonight. The silence that followed was so dense that Brooke could swear she heard a cricket somewhere. You are asking me to have dinner with your family. As your girlfriend? Yes. After I confused you with an escort from an app? Yes. And kissed you in the pool thinking it was part of the service? Technically, the kiss was my idea. Brooke opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. This is the most absurd thing anyone has ever asked me. I know. Your family is going to hate me. Probably not. I am going to do something embarrassing. Almost certainly. And you still want me to go? Alexander took a step toward her. You were the most interesting person I have met in years. You made me jump into a pool in a suit. You made me really laugh for the first time in months. And you dance as if the music was made just for you. Brooke felt her face heat up. That is emotional blackmail. It is a sincere request. I pretended for you. Now I am asking you to pretend for me. She stared at him for a long moment. This man was completely crazy. The situation was completely crazy. Everything was completely crazy. And yet, part of her wanted to say yes. If I accept, she said slowly, I need time to get ready. I am not going to meet your family looking like I just woke up from a coma. Dinner is at 8 in the evening. Brooke looked at the clock. Noon. 8 hours. She nodded. I can do something with that. Is that a yes? That is an I must be going crazy, but yes. Alexander smiled, a real smile that completely transformed his face. I will pick you up at 7:30. 7:30. Okay. He turned to leave, but Brooke grabbed him by the arm. Alexander? Yes? If your mother hates me, it is all your fault. Noted. He left, and Brooke closed the door behind him. She leaned her forehead against the wood and took a deep breath. What did I just agree to do? She had 8 hours to transform herself into someone who dated billionaires. She looked at the messy apartment, at the scattered clothes, at her own reflection in the hallway mirror. Okay, Brooke, she said to herself. You can do this. It is just a dinner. With a billionaire's family, who thinks you have been his girlfriend for 8 months. Easy. She was not convinced at all, but at least now she had time to panic properly. 7:30 in the evening. Right on time. The doorbell rang and Brooke almost tripped on her own heel running to the door. She'd spent the last 8 hours in a hurricane of preparation. Shower, hair, makeup, change of clothes, another change of clothes, a third change of clothes, and finally, a decision that involved throwing all the options on the bed and choosing with her eyes closed. The result was a navy blue dress that was elegant but not over the top, heels high enough to look sophisticated but low enough not to fall flat on her face, and makeup that had taken 45 minutes but looked natural. She opened the door. Alexander was standing there, impeccable as always, but this time his eyes lingered on her for a moment longer. You look different, he said. I took a shower and put on real clothes. It works wonders. You look beautiful. Brooke felt her face heat up. Stop doing that. Doing what? Saying things that leave me without a response. It is disconcerting. Alexander smiled. Shall we go? The car was waiting in front of the building. The same driver from before opened the door for her, and Brooke got in, trying to look like someone who did this every day. She did not succeed. So, she said as soon as the car started moving, breaking the silence, before I meet your family and probably ruin my social life forever, I think you owe me some explanations. Alexander glanced at her sideways. What kind of explanations? To start with, why were you at the hotel that night? She turned in her seat to face him. I researched you. Technology company. I did not see anything about you being a receptionist in your spare time. Alexander was silent for a moment. I had just come out of a meeting. A meeting at the hotel on a Saturday night. Business does not respect weekends. Okay. And what kind of meeting was it? A meeting about the hotel. Brooke frowned. About the hotel? Like you were closing some technology deal with them? Installing a new system? Upgrading the Wi-Fi? Not exactly. Then what exactly? Alexander sighed. The hotel is mine. The car continued moving, the driver continued driving, the world continued spinning, but Brooke's brain stopped completely. Wait, she said slowly. On the internet, it said you owned a technology company, and I do. But now you are saying the hotel is also yours. It also is. You have a technology company and a hotel chain? I do. Brooke blinked several times. How many companies do you have exactly? A few. A few? That is a very vague answer for someone who apparently collects companies as a hobby. Technology is the main business. The hotels are a separate segment. A separate segment, she repeated. Like someone who has a dog and also a cat. Except in your case, it is a billion-dollar company and a luxury hotel chain. More or less that. Brooke was silent for exactly 5 seconds. Then she started laughing. It was not a delicate laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had completely lost control of the situation. A laugh that came from the depths of her soul and did not want to stop. Wait, she said between giggles. Wait. You are telling me that Tyler spent a fortune to get married at the hotel owned by the guy his ex-girlfriend was kissing in the pool? Technically, he does not know that I am the owner. But you are. The hotel is yours. It is. Tyler Mitchell got married at your hotel. He did, and paid for it. I presume so. Brooke threw her head back, laughing even more. This is the most poetic thing I have ever heard in my life. Please tell me you are going to send a thank you card. Dear Tyler, thank you for choosing my establishment for the happiest day of your life. Sincerely, your ex's boyfriend. I am not going to send any card. You should. I will help write it. Alexander shook his head, but he was smiling. You are impossible. You have said that before. She wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. Okay, so you have a technology company, a hotel chain, and probably more things you are not telling me. What else? A private island? A castle in Europe? The moon? I do not have the moon. But you have an island and a castle? No comment. That is a yes. Alexander did not respond, which was basically a confirmation. Brooke took a deep breath, trying to process everything. Okay, so just so I understand the complete situation, you are a billionaire, owner of a technology company, a hotel chain, and possibly an island and a castle. You were in the lobby of your own hotel because you had just come out of a meeting. And I, a complete stranger, grabbed your arm, shoved money in your pocket, and dragged you to pretend to be my boyfriend at my ex's wedding, which happened at your hotel, which he chose without knowing it was yours. Accurate summary, and you just accepted? Did not say anything? Alexander looked at her. You did not give me much of a chance to say anything. I gave you several chances. You talked for approximately 3 minutes straight without breathing. That is an exaggeration. I timed it mentally. Brooke opened her mouth to protest, but realized he was probably right. Okay, she admitted. Maybe I talk too much when I am nervous? Maybe. They were silent for a moment, but it was a comfortable silence. Brooke looked out the window, watching the lights of Manhattan passing by. Why did you do it? She asked finally. Why did you go along with the act? You could have corrected me at any moment. You could have left. You could have called security. Alexander took a moment to respond. I was coming out of a 3-hour meeting about financial projections for the next quarter. Before that, I had spent the entire day on calls with investors, and before that, an entire week of decisions that affect thousands of employees. That sounds exhausting. It is. He looked at her. And then you appeared, grabbed my arm, gave me an envelope of money, and dragged me into the most absurd situation I have ever experienced. Sorry? No. He almost smiled. It was the best thing that has happened to me in months. Brooke felt something strange in her chest, something she did not want to name. You need better hobbies, she said, trying to keep the tone light. Probably. The car turned a corner and Brooke noticed they were leaving Manhattan. The city lights gave way to more tree-lined streets, larger houses, impeccable gardens. So, she said, about your family. What do I need to know? My mother, Eleanor, will ask you many questions. She is intense. Intense how? She found out I was dating through her hairdresser. She is not happy. Great. Furious mother-in-law. Love it. She is not your mother-in-law. Fake mother-in-law. Even more dangerous. Alexander continued. My father, Richard, is more reserved. He will analyze you in silence and form an opinion he will never share with anyone. Comforting. And my brother Brian will try to provoke you the whole time. He thinks all of this is hilarious. At least someone is having fun. You will survive. That is the least confident phrase you could have said. Alexander smiled for real this time. You managed to survive an entire wedding pretending to be my girlfriend. A dinner will be easy. It was not that hard, Brooke admitted. You made things easier. I pretended for you. And now I pretend for you. Simple as that, Brooke nodded. Simple as that. No contract, no complications. You helped me. I help you. Agreed. They looked at each other for a moment. There was something there in that look that Brooke could not define. A strange connection between two people who had met just over 24 hours ago, but who, for some reason, seemed to understand each other. Just one more thing, she said. What? The bookstore story in Boston. The spilled coffee. That is still official? Do you want to change it? No. The story is good. I just want to make sure we are aligned. She counted on her fingers. Bookstore in Boston. You spilled coffee on my blouse. You bought me a new coffee. We talked for hours. You asked for my number. 8 months of dating. Perfect. And if they ask about the first kiss? Alexander looked at her with an amused expression. Technically, our first kiss was in a pool, last night. They do not need to know that. So what do we say? Brooke thought for a moment. Third date. You took me somewhere romantic to see the stars. I tripped on something. You caught me. Perfect moment. Kiss. You tripped. I am clumsy. It is more realistic. Fair. The car began to slow down. Brooke looked out the window and saw a mansion approaching. Not a big house. A real mansion. With gates and gardens and probably a butler. Is this it? She asked, her voice coming out higher than intended. This is it. This is a mansion. It is the family home. You grew up here? I did. Brooke took a deep breath, then breathed again, then a third time. Okay, she said. I can do this. It is just pretending I am a normal person who dates billionaires. Normal people date billionaires all the time. It happens. You are talking to yourself. That is how I process stress. She turned to him. How do I look? Perfect. You always say that, because it is true. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. A man in uniform opened the door for Brooke. She looked at Alexander one last time. If I mess up, will you save me? I will fake save you. That will have to do. Brooke got out of the car, adjusted her dress, and looked at the imposing mansion in front of her. On the other side of the door, 3 people were waiting to meet the girlfriend Alexander had never mentioned. And Brooke had the feeling that Eleanor Reed had already formed an opinion about her. The only question was whether that opinion could get worse. The mansion door opened before they even reached the entrance steps. Brooke had barely gotten out of the car, and they were already being greeted. A real butler, with a uniform and everything. Mr. Reed. Miss Sterling. The man gave a slight bow. The family awaits you in the living room. Brooke leaned toward Alexander. You have a butler, she whispered. We do. A real butler. Who knows my name? He researched. Everyone researched me today. I should have updated my profile picture. Alexander placed his hand on her back, guiding her inside. The touch was light, but Brooke felt a shiver run up her spine. Pretending, she reminded herself. Just pretending. The living room was exactly what she expected. Huge, tastefully decorated, and full of things that probably cost more than she would like to know. 3 pairs of eyes turned in their direction when they entered. Eleanor Reed stood up first. She was even more intimidating in person than Brooke had imagined. Perfectly arranged hair, impeccable posture, and a smile that revealed absolutely nothing. So, said Eleanor approaching, you are the famous Brooke. Famous is an exaggeration. Viral is more accurate. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. You have a sense of humor. It is a defense mechanism. My therapist confirms. For a moment, no one said anything. Then Eleanor let out a short laugh. I like her. Eleanor looked at her son with approval. For now? Is that a compliment? Brooke whispered to Alexander. Coming from my mother? It is practically a medal of honor, he whispered back. Brian approached next. He was younger than Brooke expected, 13 years old at most, but had the same confident smile as his older brother. So you are the woman who made my brother become a meme. He extended his hand with rehearsed formality. Nice to meet you. I am a fan of your work. Thank you. I worked very hard to publicly embarrass him. And you succeeded. The video of you two dancing already has 5 million views. 5 million? Brooke looked at Alexander. You did not mention that. It did not seem relevant. 5 million people watched us dance, and that is not relevant? 6 million now, Brian corrected, looking at his phone. It went up while we were talking. Richard Reed approached last. He was not smiling. He was not frowning. His expression was completely neutral, which was somehow even more frightening. "Miss Sterling," he said, his voice deep, "my son has never brought a woman to meet the family." "Never?" "Never." Brooke looked at Alexander, who seemed slightly uncomfortable. "Well," she said, turning back to Richard, "technically he did not bring me by choice either. It was more a matter of damage control after the video went viral." Richard stared at her for a long moment. "You are honest. Too much sometimes. It is a problem." "It is not a problem. It is rare." He turned and walked toward the dining room without saying anything else. Brooke looked at Alexander. "Was that good or bad?" "With my father, it is hard to tell." The dinner was an experience Brooke would never forget. Not because of the elaborate dishes or the expensive wine, but because of the questions. Eleanor Reed turned the meal into an interrogation disguised as polite conversation. "So, Brooke, what exactly do you do?" "I am an event planner." "What kind of events?" "Weddings mostly, some corporate parties, graduations when I'm desperate for money." "And do you like what you do?" "I love it. I have seen things you would not believe. Brides running off with waiters, mothers-in-law sabotaging cakes, a groom who fainted 3 times during the ceremony, and once a dog that ate the wedding rings and we had to wait for him to do his business to recover them." Brian choked on his drink. Eleanor widened her eyes. Richard continued eating as if nothing had happened. Alexander was making a visible effort not to laugh. "That is..." Eleanor searched for the right word. "Disgusting." Brooke offered. "It was, but we recovered the rings. Sterilized, of course. I was going to say memorable. It was that, too." The dinner continued with Eleanor asking more questions and Brooke answering with an honesty that bordered on absurd. She did not try to impress. She did not try to seem like someone she was not. And for some reason, that seemed to be working. "Do you understand business?" Richard asked at one point. "Absolutely nothing." "Nothing." "Zero. I know that money comes in, money goes out, and at the end of the month, I hope there is something left. That is the limit of my financial knowledge." "Interesting." "It is scary, actually. My accountant is always sending me desperate messages." Richard almost smiled. Almost. "But you can identify fake people." It was not a question. "I can," said Brooke. "From miles away. It is a talent I developed after being cheated on by my best friend with my ex-boyfriend. Nothing like a disappointment to sharpen your instincts." The silence that followed was dense. Alexander placed his hand over hers under the table. A small gesture, almost imperceptible, but Brooke felt it. "The wedding where you two were," said Eleanor. "Whose wedding was it?" "My ex-boyfriend's." Brooke answered. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You went to your ex's wedding?" "I received the invitation and decided to accept." Brooke shrugged. "Nothing more natural than going accompanied by my boyfriend." "Brave," Eleanor commented. "Or petty. Depends on your point of view." Eleanor almost smiled. "And how was it? The wedding?" "Beautiful. The bride was radiant. The groom seemed nervous." Brooke looked at Alexander. "But the best part of the night was dancing with him." Alexander returned her gaze with an intensity that made Brooke's stomach leap. It was a lie. It was part of the act. But for some reason, the word sounded true. After dinner, Brian suggested a game of chess. "Do you play?" he asked Brooke. "My grandfather taught me when I was 8 years old." "Great. Ready to lose?" "We will see." 15 minutes later, Brian was staring at the board with an expression of complete disbelief. "Checkmate," said Brooke. "How?" "You left your left flank completely exposed. But I always beat everyone. Did your grandfather teach you to play?" "No. I learned on my own." "That was your mistake. Grandfathers teach secrets that no one else knows." She leaned back in her chair. "Want a rematch?" Brian looked at Alexander. "Where did you find this woman?" "She found me," Alexander replied. "Literally." Eleanor watched everything with an expression Brooke could not decipher. Satisfaction? Approval? It was hard to tell. "It is getting late," she said finally. "Alexander, take your girlfriend home. She needs to rest." "Thank you for dinner, Mrs. Reed," said Brooke, standing up. "Eleanor." "What?" "Call me Eleanor. Mrs. Reed makes me feel old." Brooke smiled. "Thank you for dinner, Eleanor." In the car, on the way home, Brooke finally allowed herself to relax. "I survived," she said, leaning her head against the seat. "You did more than survive. Does your mother hate me? My mother adored you." "Really?" "She let you call her Eleanor. She does not allow that for just anyone." Brooke looked at him. "And your father?" "My father said you are honest. Coming from him, that is practically a declaration of love." "And Brian?" "Brian is in shock because he lost at chess to a woman. It will be good for his ego." Brooke laughed, but the laughter died when she noticed Alexander was looking at her in a different way. "What?" she asked. "You were incredible," he said simply. It was a simple compliment. 3 words. But something about them made Brooke's heart race. "It was just acting," she said, trying to keep the tone light. "Was it?" The question hung suspended in the air between them. Brooke did not answer. She did not know how to answer. Pretending, she reminded herself for the 100th time that night. Just pretending. But when Alexander held her hand for the rest of the ride, she did not pull away. And when they arrived at her apartment and he said goodbye with a kiss on her forehead, Brooke stood at the door for a long time after the car drove away. Her phone vibrated. A message from Alexander. "My mother wants to see you again. Sunday. Family lunch." Brooke stared at the screen. One dinner had turned into a lunch. A lunch would probably turn into another event, and another, and another. She was getting deeper and deeper into this charade. And the worst part? She did not want out. The following weeks passed at a pace Brooke did not expect. Galas, dinners, corporate events, always together, always holding hands, always pretending. Except that at some point, it became hard to know where the pretending ended and reality began. Alexander started calling every night, not out of obligation, not because someone was watching, just because he wanted to. "My day was a disaster," Brooke said during one of those calls, sprawled on her apartment couch. The bride changed the wedding theme for the 5th time. Now she wants enchanted garden with an industrial touch. What does that mean? "I do not know." She does not know. Nobody knows. Alexander laughed on the other end of the line, a low, genuine laugh. "And what did you tell her?" "That it was a wonderful idea and that I would make it happen. Because that is what professionals do. They lie with conviction. You are good at that." "At lying?" "At making things happen." Brooke smiled at the ceiling. These calls were becoming the best part of her day. This was dangerous. One night, after a particularly long event, they went back to his penthouse. Brooke had learned to like that place, the silence, the view, the feeling of being suspended above the city. "Do you want something to drink?" Alexander asked. "Just water. I will get it myself." Brooke went to the kitchen while Alexander disappeared down the hallway. She filled a glass, took a long sip, and stood looking at the city view through the window. That was when she heard it. A soft sound coming from one of the rooms. Piano. She followed the sound to a half-open door. Alexander was sitting at the piano, his fingers gliding across the keys with an intimacy she had never seen in him. The music was melancholic, beautiful, completely different from the businessman the world knew. Brooke stood at the door, not wanting to interrupt. He played for a few more minutes before realizing he was being watched. His hand stopped. "How long have you been there?" he asked without turning around. "Long enough." She entered the room slowly. "You play very well. I do not play for other people." "Why?" Alexander was silent for a moment. "Because it is the only thing I do just for myself. No audience. No expectations. No one judging." Brooke understood. More than he could imagine. "I had something like that too," she said, sitting on the bench beside him. "Something that was just mine." Had. He did not ask more. He just went back to playing, this time a lighter melody, and Brooke stayed there listening, feeling something she had not felt in a long time. Peace. A week later, Alexander showed up with an invitation. "Ballet," he said, showing the tickets. "At Lincoln Center. Saturday night." "Ballet? You danced very well for a simple wedding. I thought you would like to see it." Brooke felt a tightness in her chest but forced a smile. "Sure. Sounds great." On Saturday, they entered the theater holding hands. The seats were perfect. The orchestra began to tune, the lights dimmed. Brooke leafed through the program distractedly while waiting, and then her blood ran cold. The name was there, in golden letters. Lead role. Jessica Carver. She wanted to stand up. She wanted to leave. She wanted to be anywhere but there. But the lights had already gone out, and the music had already started. And when Jessica entered the stage, Brooke felt the world stop. The movements were perfect. The turns, the jumps, the lightness. Everything Brooke had once been. Everything she would never be again. And there was Jessica, shining on the stage that should have been hers. Tears began to stream down Brooke's face. Silent. She tried to hide them, turned her face away, but Alexander noticed. He did not say anything. He just found her hand in the dark and held it tight, and stayed that way until the end of the show. Afterward, they went to a small, quiet cafe. Brooke ordered tea. She could not look at him. "You do not have to tell me," said Alexander. "But I would like to understand." Brooke took a deep breath. She had kept this inside for so long. She had built such high walls, but something about this man made her want to tear everything down. "I was a ballerina," she said finally. Alexander did not seem surprised. "I was good, very good." She looked at her own hands. "At 24, I was about to join one of the best companies in New York. It was everything I had always wanted, everything I had worked my whole life to achieve. What happened? An injury, during a rehearsal, a movement I had done thousands of times." Her voice faltered. "I heard the snap before I felt the pain. 2 surgeries later, the doctors were categorical. I would never dance professionally again." The silence that followed was dense, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that allows you to breathe. "The woman on stage today," said Alexander quietly. "It was her, was it not?" "The Jessica from the wedding," Brooke nodded. "We danced together since we were teenagers. We dreamed together. We planned together." She swallowed hard. "When I got hurt," she continued, "she got everything that should have been mine. And I stayed backstage, watching. And Tyler? Tyler was my boyfriend, 3 years together. He cheated on me during my recovery." Brooke finally looked at Alexander. "With her." She waited for the empty phrases. The "everything will be fine," the "you will get over it," the "it happens for a reason." But Alexander did not say any of that. He just held her hand tighter and said, "Thank you for telling me." 4 words, simple, without trying to fix anything, without trying to minimize. "Why are you thanking me?" she asked. "Because you trusted me, and I know that is not easy for you." Brooke felt her eyes burn again. "I have never told anyone this. Not like this. Not everything." "Why? Because it hurts. And I thought that if I did not talk about it, maybe it would hurt less." "And does it hurt less?" "No." She gave a sad smile. "It hurts the same. Just alone." Alexander stood up, went to her side of the table, and sat beside her. "You are not alone anymore," he said. Brooke looked at him. At this man she had confused with an escort from an app, who had entered her craziness without asking questions, who called every night just to hear about her day, who played piano when he thought no one was listening. "Is this still pretending?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Alexander looked into her eyes. "Not anymore," and then he kissed her. Slowly, as if he had all the time in the world, as if she were something precious he did not want to break. When they separated, Brooke rested her forehead against his, her heart beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" Alexander asked. "For real?" Brooke laughed, a light laugh, almost of relief. "Yes." One word, simple, without hesitation. "This complicates everything," she murmured. "I know. I should be scared." "Are you?" "No." She took a deep breath. "And that scares me more than anything." Alexander smiled, that rare smile she had learned to wait for. "We will figure it out together," he said. That night, for the first time since everything began, the pretending became reality. The following weeks were different from anything Brooke had ever experienced. Dating Alexander for real was surprisingly similar to fake dating Alexander. Except now she did not have to pretend her heart raced when he called, or that she smiled for no reason when she thought of him, or that she counted the minutes until she saw him again. All of that was already happening before. The only difference was that now she could admit it. Sunday lunches at the Reed mansion became routine. Eleanor treated her with cautious affection. Richard occasionally asked questions about her work. Brian still tried to beat her at chess, and Alexander looked at her as if she were the only person in the room. It was at one of these lunches that everything changed. Eleanor Reed did not beg. Never. But on that particular Sunday she was dangerously close to it. 3 weeks, she repeated for the 4th time, her fork forgotten on her plate. 3 weeks and Margaret Whitmore decides she needs to reconnect with the universe at a monastery in Nepal. I thought it was Tibet, said Brian, without taking his eyes off his phone. Nepal, Tibet, whatever. The point is she abandoned the most important event of the year to go meditate with monks. Richard continued eating in silence. Alexander held Brooke's hand under the table, and Brooke tried not to smile, because clearly this was not the moment. Is there no one available? Asked Alexander. Available and competent, with 3 weeks' notice? Eleanor let out a humorless laugh. Darling, event planners at this level are booked years in advance. Years. I called every agency. One of them had the audacity to laugh. Laugh? Brooke could not contain herself. Laugh, in my face, as if I had told a particularly funny joke. The silence that followed was dense. Eleanor was staring at her own plate as if it had personally offended her. Brooke thought for a moment. Thought about the ball. 300 guests, themed decor, $1 million auction. It was crazy. It was completely outside her comfort zone. It was exactly the kind of challenge she needed. I can do it, she said. All eyes turned to her. What? Eleanor stared at her. The ball. I can organize it. You work for an event company, do you not? They would not have a problem with this? Actually, Brooke took a deep breath. I was planning to leave. Start my own business. I've been thinking about it for months. This event would be the first in my independent portfolio. Alexander squeezed her hand under the table. He did not know about this plan, but his look said he completely supported it. You want to use my charity ball as an experiment? Eleanor raised an eyebrow. Not as an experiment, as a debut. Brooke straightened her posture. I have been organizing events for 5 years. Weddings where the mother-in-law sabotages the cake and the bride discovers at the altar that the groom has another family. Graduations where the honoree failed 3 times and still wants a triumphal entrance with smoke. 15th birthday parties with $1 million budget and a $10 million ego. A charity ball is a Tuesday for me. Eleanor studied her for a moment. Do you have experience with 300 guests? I have organized a wedding with 400. The bride changed the theme 5 times in the last week. The buffet caught fire, literally, and still everyone said it was the event of the year. The buffet caught fire? Just a little. Nobody noticed. That is the magic of a good planner. And you are willing to risk your independent debut on an event with 3 weeks of preparation? Brooke smiled. If I can do this in 3 weeks, imagine what I can do with 6 months. It will be the best advertisement I could have. Eleanor studied her for a long moment. That calculating look Brooke already knew well. 3 weeks, the matriarch said finally. No mistakes, no excuses. If something goes wrong, the responsibility is entirely yours. I know. My reputation is at stake, and apparently your career too. I know that too. And the theme is A Night in Paris. It cannot be generic. It needs to be sophisticated, elegant, memorable. It will be all that and more. Eleanor gave a half smile. The kind of smile she probably gave before closing $1 million deals. Very well, Brooke. The job is yours. Do not disappoint me. I never disappoint. In the car heading home, Alexander finally asked, You did not tell me you wanted to start your own business. I was waiting for the right moment, and the right moment was during a lunch with my mother in a panic? Apparently, yes, she smiled. Are you mad? Mad? He looked at her. I am proud. It is brave. Or completely idiotic. Sometimes it is the same thing. The next 3 weeks were a hurricane. Brooke resigned on Monday. Her boss was surprised, but wished her luck. Some colleagues thought she'd gone crazy. Maybe she had. She transformed her apartment into a command center. There were papers on every surface, colorful sticky notes on the walls forming complex diagrams, fabric samples scattered across the couch, photos of flowers, chandeliers, and table arrangements covering every available inch. She slept 4 hours a night, sometimes 3. She lived on coffee and determination. You need to eat, said Alexander, appearing at her door on a Tuesday night. I ate. Coffee is not food. It has milk. Milk is nutritious. He entered carrying bags of Thai food. Without asking permission, he went to the kitchen and started setting out the dishes. What are you doing? Brooke asked, without taking her eyes off the laptop. Feeding you. He took the laptop from her hands. Break. Now, Alexander, I have to confirm the flower supplier. The lavender has a stock problem, and without lavender, it is not Paris. It is just an expensive dinner with rich people. The lavender can wait 20 minutes. It cannot. It can. He placed a plate in front of her. Eat. Brooke wanted to protest, wanted to say she did not have time. But the smell of the food made her stomach growl so loud that any argument died right there. They ate sitting on the floor, surrounded by fabric samples and endless lists. "This is ridiculous," she said between bites. "I am eating pad thai on top of a $200,000 budget. Adds flavor. Adds grease to the paper. Paper cleans." She laughed. A tired laugh, but genuine. And then she realized something. Tyler had never done this. In 3 years of relationship, he had never showed up without warning, just to make sure she was eating. He had never taken work out of her hands to force her to rest. He had never sat on her apartment floor just to keep her company. Tyler showed up when he needed something, when he wanted something, when it was convenient for him. Alexander showed up when she needed him, even when she did not know she needed him. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Do what?" "Show up here, bring food, force me to take breaks." Alexander looked at her as if the answer were obvious. "Because I care about you. But you have a company to run. Meetings, important things. You are important." 4 words. Simple. Said without hesitation. Brooke felt her chest tighten. "Tyler never did this," she said quietly. "Never showed up just because. Never asked about my day without having a reason. Never really listened to me." Alexander was silent for a moment. "Tyler was an idiot. I already knew that. So why are you comparing?" Brooke thought. "Because sometimes I still do not believe this is real. That you are real. That someone can just care, without wanting anything in return." Alexander moved closer. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I want things in return. What? That you sleep more than 3 hours. That you eat something other than coffee. That you let me take care of you once in a while. That is very little. For me, it is everything." Brooke felt her eyes burn. Not from sadness, from something much bigger. "I love you," she said. The words came out before she could think, before she could be afraid. Alexander smiled, that smile that completely transformed his face. "I love you too. Even when I get obsessed with French lavender? Especially when you get obsessed with French lavender." She laughed, and he kissed her, and for a moment the ball, the flowers, and the 300 guests seemed completely irrelevant. But only for a moment. Because there were 19 days left and Brooke Sterling was not going to disappoint anyone. Not Eleanor Reed, not Alexander, not herself. This ball would be the beginning of everything. Of her company, of her new life, of the future she was building with her own hands. The broken ballerina was about to prove she could fly in other ways. The ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel looked as if it had been transported directly from Paris. Crystal chandeliers poured golden light over 300 guests dressed in their finest attire. Arrangements of lavender and peonies perfumed the air. A miniature Eiffel Tower, 10 feet tall, sparkled in the center of the ballroom, and Brooke Sterling was in the middle of all this, trying not to faint from relief. The same hotel where everything began, where she grabbed the arm of a stranger thinking he was an escort from an app, where Tyler got married without any idea that the owner was the man who would steal the scene with his ex. And now there she was, being celebrated in the main ballroom. The irony was almost too poetic. "This is..." Eleanor stopped beside her, her eyes scanning every detail of the ballroom. "Horrible? Disastrous? An insult to the city of Paris? Perfect," Eleanor completed. "This is absolutely perfect." Brooke blinked. "Sorry, I think I heard wrong. You said perfect? Do not make me repeat it. Excessive compliments are bad for my reputation." Alexander appeared beside them, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "Did my mother just say something positive?" "Apparently yes," said Brooke, still in shock. "Did someone write down the date? This is historic." "Alexander," Eleanor glared at him. "I compliment people. Sometimes. When they deserve it." When was the last time? Eleanor thought. 2017. The chef made a particularly good soufflé. "So I am at the same level as a soufflé," said Brooke. "That is, progress, I guess." "A very good soufflé," Eleanor corrected, and there was something resembling a smile at the corner of her lips. The night flowed like a dream. The dinner was impeccable. The auction raised triple what was expected. The guests praised every detail. The lighting, the music, the flower arrangements, even the napkins that Brooke had ordered embroidered with small Eiffel Towers. The napkins were a stroke of genius, said a woman in a red dress, whom Brooke recognized as a senator's wife. Thank you. I almost had a nervous breakdown choosing the exact shade of gold for the embroidery, but it was worth it. Are you the organizer? I am, Brooke Sterling. First night as an independent businesswoman. Well, you just gained a client. My daughter is getting married in June. Brooke smiled, exchanged cards, and tried not to scream with joy in the middle of the ballroom. That was when she saw them. On the other side of the ballroom, near the entrance, two figures seemed completely out of place. Not because of what they were wearing. His suit was appropriate, her dress was beautiful, but because of the way they were looking around, like tourists in a country where they did not speak the language. Tyler and Jessica. Brooke's heart skipped a beat. Not from pain, not from anger, just surprise. What is it? Alexander followed her gaze. What are they doing here? Charity event. Extensive guest list. They probably know someone who knows someone. Did they see me? Not yet, but they will. Brooke took a deep breath. It is fine. Everything is fine. I am a professional. I organized this entire event. I am dating an incredible man. I have nothing to prove to them. You are talking to yourself again. That is how I process. Alexander smiled and extended his hand. Dance with me. Now? Now. He guided her to the dance floor, where other couples were already moving to the sound of a live orchestra. And when the music started, Brooke let herself be carried away. It was different from the dance at the wedding. There was nothing to prove. No ex to impress. No charade to maintain. It was just her and Alexander, moving together as if they had been doing it their whole lives. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Tyler watching. She saw the expression on his face, something between surprise and discomfort. Jessica was beside him, her lips pressed into a thin line. Brooke smiled. Not for them. For herself. You are smiling, said Alexander. I am. Why? Because I finally understood something. What? That the best revenge is not confrontation. It is happiness. When the music ended, Eleanor took the stage. The entire ballroom fell silent. Tonight, she began, her voice projecting effortlessly, we raised over $3 million for the New York Children's Hospital. Applause echoed through the ballroom. But I would like to give special thanks to someone who made all of this possible. 3 weeks ago, I was on the verge of a breakdown. The original organizer had quit, and I had no one to take over. Brooke felt her face heat up. Then a young woman raised her hand and said she could do it. In 3 weeks. Without a team, without infrastructure. Just talent, determination, and an absurd amount of coffee. Scattered laughter throughout the ballroom. Brooke Sterling. Eleanor looked directly at her. You did not just save this event. You transformed it into something extraordinary. Thank you. The entire ballroom applauded. People Brooke had never seen before were smiling at her. Businessmen nodded with respect. Politicians' wives raised their glasses in her direction. And in the middle of all this, she saw Tyler and Jessica, standing, motionless, watching the woman they had discarded being celebrated by New York's elite. Jessica took a step toward Brooke. Then another. Clearly wanting to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an explanation, maybe just morbid curiosity. Brooke saw her approaching, saw the expensive dress that had probably cost a month's salary, saw the rehearsed expression of fake sympathy. And then, with the calm of someone who had finally made peace with the past, Brooke simply smiled. A polite, distant smile, the kind you give to acquaintances who no longer matter. Excuse me, she said to no one in particular. I need to talk to the senator's wife about her daughter's wedding. And she turned her back. No drama, no confrontation, without giving Jessica the satisfaction of a reaction. Just the silent victory of someone who had moved on. Half an hour later, Brooke noticed that Tyler and Jessica had left. She did not know exactly when. She did not care enough to find out. They left, said Alexander, appearing beside her. I know. How do you feel? Brooke thought for a moment. Free, she said finally. I feel free. He smiled and pulled her closer. You were incredible today. I know, she laughed. Thank you. I know. Conceited. Realistic. The night continued. The guests danced, talked, drank too much champagne, and when the last ones started to leave, Brooke allowed herself to breathe for the first time in 3 weeks. She had done it. Alexander found her on the terrace, barefoot, her heels abandoned somewhere in the ballroom. The view of Manhattan sparkled below them. "Are you running away from your own party?" he asked. "I am enjoying the silence before someone asks me to solve something else." He approached. There was something different in his gaze, something that made Brooke's heart race. "What is it?" she asked. Alexander did not answer immediately. Instead, he put his hand in his jacket pocket and took out a small velvet box. Brooke forgot how to breathe. "Alexander," she said, her voice coming out strangely high-pitched. "What is that?" "A box." "I know it is a box. What is inside the box?" "Do you want me to ruin the surprise?" He opened the box. The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, with an oval-cut diamond that sparkled under the Manhattan light. "How did you know?" she whispered. "That I would want exactly this one. You once said that round diamonds are cliché, but that an oval cut would be interesting. On a Tuesday at 11 at night, while eating ice cream. You remember that?" "I remember everything you say." He knelt. There, on the terrace of the Grand Meridian Hotel, with Manhattan sparkling below them. "Brooke Sterling," he said, "a few months ago, you grabbed my arm at the entrance of this hotel thinking I was an escort from an app. You were going to start the proposal like this. You gave me $500 in cash, $480. The envelope was not full. You dragged me to a wedding, taught me how to make pancakes at 3 in the morning, and made me laugh more in 3 months than I laughed in 3 years." He took a deep breath. "You are stubborn. You talk too much when you are nervous, you have an irrational fear of pigeons, and you are the most annoyingly perfect person I have ever met." "Is that a compliment or a criticism?" "It is a proposal." He raised the ring. "Will you marry me?" Brooke felt the tears streaming down her face. "Yes. Yes, I want to marry you. Even though you are a billionaire who does not know how to fry an egg." He put the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." He stood up and kissed her, slowly, as if that moment were the first of many, and it was. The sound of applause made them separate. At the terrace door, the entire Reed family was standing. Eleanor with a smile she was clearly trying to contain. Richard with his usual impassive expression. Brian with his phone in hand, probably filming everything. "Finally," said Eleanor, approaching. "I thought he was never going to have the courage." "Mother," said Alexander. "What? You called me 3 times yesterday, asking if the ring was right." Brooke looked at him. 3 times? 2. The third was about something else." "It was about the ring too," said Eleanor. Richard approached Brooke. He looked at her for a long moment, and then, for the first time since she had met him, he smiled. "Welcome to the Reed family." Brooke felt her chest tighten, with happiness, with gratitude, with pure joy. "Thank you," she said. Brian raised his phone. "Smile. This is going to get at least 1 million views." "Brian," everyone said at the same time, but they were laughing. All of them. Brooke looked at the family that would soon be hers, at the ring on her finger, at Alexander by her side. Everything had started with a misunderstanding, an envelope of money, and a stranger at the entrance of a hotel, and it had ended here. With a yes, a new family, and a future she never imagined was possible. The ballerina who lost everything had found something much greater. And this time, she was not going to let it slip away. Sometimes, the biggest mistakes of our lives lead us exactly where we needed to be. And sometimes, the right person appears at the most wrong moment, and that is exactly what makes everything perfect. If you felt this too, leave in the comments the rating you would give this story. And if you believe that everyone deserves a second chance at love, subscribe to the channel.